This is the biggest shit I have seen from Trump yet. If you had justice for the scamdemic on your 2025 bingo card, mark that shit off. He just put a communications blackout on the CDC, FDA, HHS, and fucking NIH. On your all of them. They are blacked the fuck out. They can't publish any reports. They can't communicate. They can't talk to anybody. They can't update their website. They can't fucking start another scamdemic. Whatever the fuck we all thought they were planning another fucking scamdemic with the goddamn monkeypox and shit. Dude, they fucking got him. He fucking cut him off right at the fucking legs. Trump is the road runner, and these corrupt fucks are Wile E. Coyote. He is cutting them off at the pass every single fucking time. And it's only Wednesday. Like, Jesus Christ, I don't even want to tell him to slow down. But, like, I can't keep up. I can't keep up with all the awesomeness. How does he do this? How is he doing this? This is fucking... Like, I didn't even think the first week could be this awesome. I knew it was going to blow minds, but this is going to be... By Friday, what are we going to do? What awesome shit has he got fucking stacked up for us here? I'm already out of popcorn. What the fuck am I going to do? This is the biggest shit I have seen from...
Great. That was great. Oh, that was great. I like that guy. I don't know who it is, but I like that guy. I like that guy. That guy is great. Get your freaking popcorn. Get it now. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I'm your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. As we close out the week, and just to give you a heads up in case you missed it late in the show, I'm going to open this show with this. Next week, I ain't going to be here. I'm hoping to be, I plan on being here Saturday night, which is technically the end of this week, right? I mean, it's a Saturday night. It's like the weekend. So Saturday night, I plan on streaming, and you're not going to see me for like at least a week. I'm supposed to be coming back in here. I'll be gone Sunday. Let me look at the calendar. Let me pull up a calendar here. That's not calendar. Why don't I see calendar? All right. Well, yeah. Okay. So today's the 23rd. Tomorrow's 24th, 25th. I'm leaving on the 26th. That's my math. My math is saying I'm leaving on the 26th, Sunday. And I'm going to be gone into February. I'm missing back-to-back weeks, Sunday through Sunday, hoping to be, including both Sundays, hoping to be back on Monday. Since I began streaming, since I made my debut, I want to say 3 years ago or so, roughly. I don't know. I'm not even, who can keep track anymore? I have not taken a week-long vacation. This is the first time that I am doing that. It is a family vacation where I am privileged to take Lady Lawgic and my youngest abroad, and we will not be here. So, yeah. So whatever you want to get off your chest to like yell at me or something, you probably need to get it out. You probably need to get it tonight. That's going to happen unless you're going to have to hold it in for a while. People have to be like holding back that anger for a while, or love, I guess, technically. Either way. So, yeah, I just wanted you all to be aware. When you don't see me next week, don't worry that, God forbid, something bad happened. I think quite the contrary. Celebrating a vacation, long overdue vacation, where I plan on visiting with my son and daughter-in-law abroad, and yeah, not going to be here. So when you don't get notifications, I might do a locals. I probably will do a locals or two at goodlogic.locals.com. In fact, I'll tell you right now, a locals or two, at least one, probably two. And who knows where I'll basically, I guess, be telling you about my trip, maybe be talking about developments going on in the news. We'll see. But I'm not going to be able to do this thing here where I'm able to like sort of, just sort of share screens and stuff like that, because I'm going to be on a laptop or my phone or whatever, a tablet or my phone, whatever it is. I'm definitely not going to be I'm not going to have this whole setup here, which is necessary to do the show the way I like to do it. So yeah, there's not going to be a regular show next week. So Just giving you that heads up. All right, we got that out of the way. Got that out of the way. I have a lot to cover tonight. A lot to cover. I don't even know where to begin. I think we're going to start. What I plan on covering during the course of the show is this. James Okeefe had a new drop about a guy who's exposed his former White House aide or whatever. I think a lot of folks in the White House over the last 4 years probably were aides. There were probably a lot of them there. And so one of them basically was talking about different steps that staff take, people part of the bureaucracy take in order to slow things down when they have someone at the helm that they feel is relatively a newbie to DC politics. And he exposed that. I think it's definitely worth a watch because right now, what we have incoming, hopefully, is Pete Hegseth. Hopefully, supposedly, Murkowski became a no, as did someone else on Pete Hegseth. But he's a DC outsider. Tulsi Gabbard, assuming she gets confirmed, DC outsider. RFK Jr. outsider. Kash Patel, I would not say is really an outsider per se. He at least it's not his first rodeo, so he has some familiarity with the shenanigans that go on. He understands it and perhaps can see through it. Pam Bondi also is not used to the DC politics. It's a way they try to take advantage of folks who are unfamiliar with the different steps that are taken. And hopefully some of these get exposed. So this way, if they try employing these tactics against folks who are looking to better the lives of Americans, that they'll be seen through. Those tactics will be seen through, hopefully. So that's Okeefe. That's the first thing I plan on doing. There's a lot of developments with respect to the border crisis and things of that nature, and I'm going to be touching on that. Also, going to be talking a little bit about files being released, and yeah. And finally, the featured story for tonight that I plan on covering near the end. Well, I guess not near the end, but probably not going to start till like midway through the show, is my argument in support of going after Fauci, going after the J6 Select Committee, having Pam Bondi charge them, and moving forward, and why those charges ultimately should prevail. But that's my own legal brain developing all of this and coming to these conclusions based on case law, where the case law is that's actually pretty strong. It's pretty irrefutable case law that I'm going to make the case as to why it is that they should be charged. And certainly I want to see Kash Patel going after them. I want to see Pam Bondi charging them. So, but that's where I'm going to close out the show. If we have time, maybe I'll take some call-ins. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But in the meanwhile, I have Pow Angel here, who's a new member of the following. Welcome to the following, Pow! Welcome aboard. Following. I hope it's not your first radio, because some people see what's going on here. It's about better, self-development. You become a follower. That's what happens. You become a follower. People think it's about, people recognize self-development. They start thinking, is that a little bit of a culty vibe there? No, not at all. A cult type of cult. But a lot of people get scared away. I'm glad you jumped on in, because it's only going to better your life. 30% of people who say that they have joined the following have said that they have had 100% improvement 100% of the time. So that's like 100%. It's guaranteed. That's how you know it's guaranteed that your life is about to be enriched. So very happy for you. We should celebrate the new successes in your life now, Pow Angel, now that you brought on board and joined the following. So welcome indeed. This is one of the colors I was looking to get. If you see my goal up there, so my goal that I've set up there in the YouTube chat, that you can set up a goal of how many of a certain color chat or above you're looking for. So I think I put up there, my standard is that I put like 15 yellows is what I'm looking for. But I actually have a rainbow policy that I decided to employ also. Just because, the rainbows are going away. The time for the rainbows to come out That's sort of past. And I sort of feel in homage to them, I've established a rainbow policy based on if I'm able to shoot the rainbow of colors in super chats. So that would be a light blue. That would be this dark green that we see here for members, which that one's covered. That would be this shade of green, which I don't know what shade that is. It's definitely a shade of green though. And the yellow and with the yellows and the oranges and the pinks and the reds. And if I get one of each, which is like the rainbow. That's the rainbow. So I have a special rainbow gift, but we'll have to see if that happens. That's the rainbow policy. I think I'm going to keep that like as a regular thing. We'll see, but definitely the rainbow policy. Joe and his rainbow policy, not at all a cult type of cult. Let's check out James Okeefe. Let's get on into it. Let's get it started. We're going to introduce you to Byron Cohen. Byron Cohen. Oh, you poor man. You poor man. You poor honey-potted man.
People joke about the deep state, but like to some degree it's real.
Oh no, it's real.
Because they have ways that they can slow things down or block you without you realizing it.
Meet Byron Cohen, an advisor at the White House.
RFK Jr. is a very bad pick for HHS.
There's no, he doesn't like RFK.
A good chance that the bureaucracy just crushes
him. See, there you go. That's the light blue we covered there.
I would consider like slowing things down. I can't really think of anyone who I would less rather have be president.
I love the fact that he goes Clark Kent. It's like the lamest possible disguise. Like this is the lousiest disguise imaginable. James Okeefe will go in there. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna get like a pair of glasses, and just come. It's the worst disguise. It's such a nothing disguise. Mind Games, John Lennon. I'm not familiar with the song. Sorry, pal. Oh, look at that. You see the squid's helping out. The squid's got the blue. The squid's got the yellow. The squid's helping out.
Example of like how you think they'll do it when RFK gets in.
One thing you might be able to do to like sort of make him think like something is happening when it's not.
The White House advisor explains how the administrative state creates deceptive commissions.
He's even you're standing right next to James Okeefe. You're talking to a girl who probably is out of your league. Right? That's why, out of your league, and you're standing next to James Okeefe talking your business. This is, oh my God, they all think they're so clever. You're talking to a honeypot there. Someone out of your league standing next to James Okeefe. The only disguise James Okeefe is wearing is a pair of glasses. And you're feeling totally at home in this situation. They say the way you know something like really racist, like a racist joke is coming or some racist comment is like, when a person's talking to you and they're like, and some people, as soon as they do the glance, I think Bill Burr made that point. When they do the glance, okay, this one's going to be bad. If you're talking your business about shady stuff that you're doing, you do the quick glance. Is James Okeefe here? Is he in the room? At least that much. Do the glance. There's no harm in the momentary glance. I guess maybe it's not a cool move to do on a date. You do a double take.
To hinder executive decisions.
One of the ways you can slow things down in a bureaucracy is you can commit to studying something. Put together like a commission. Mr. Secretary, we're going to put together a commission to study the safety of fluoride in water. Mr. Secretary, we're going to put together a commission to study vaccine safety. And we'll let you know when the report comes out. And he'll be like, yes, great. And then years will pass and nothing has happened. A sophisticated bureaucrat can do a lot to run around an unsophisticated political appointee.
Byron says that when it comes to certain policy positions, subverting the will of the people is justified.
would it be subverting the will of the people to crush RFK or block him or whatever?
For the most part, the American people don't actually agree with RFK's views on things like vaccines. So, I mean, in a literal sense, if you were like blocking something he was trying to do to undermine.
Look at this clown thingy. He understands what the people want better than Trump does, right? He understands much better. You do, because that's your opinion on it. Denise says, Joe, how dare you take a vacation? Who do you think you are? You didn't ask our permission. How are we going to fall asleep at night without the dulcet tones? Have a good time. Happy for you. Thank you. And Great Liquor gifting a membership to the ghetto. That's right. I should create streets in the ghetto. The ghetto needs streets. It'd be like give it like the most Yiddish sounding streets in the world. The Gavaldic Street. all the denizens of Gavaldic Street in the ghetto.
Vaccines, you are probably acting in a way that is consistent with what the majority wants.
Meet Byron Cohen, who serves as an advisor for interagency research and development oversight in the White House Office of Pandemic, Preparedness and Response Policy, or OPPR. Byron's LinkedIn confirms his credentials, both at the White House currently and at Harvard University, where he completed the requirements for his PhD in population health sciences, and where he also taught courses in epidemiological methods. On the eve of this video being released, Byron's LinkedIn page was taken down. Byron Cohen is not a political appointee. In other words, he was not appointed by any particular president. He is what's considered a detailee and holds a fellowship at the White House through something called the Horizon Institute for Public Service that placed him in the White House. According to multiple government websites, a detailee is an employee of a United States executive branch government agency temporarily assigned to another position, generally in another U.S. government agency or international organization. The employee's original agency will usually continue to pay the person's salary. White House officials tell us that these fellows have real political power, and Byron tells us that he intends to exercise it.
What's it like working at the White House? It's pretty cool.
I like it. I mean, I have a good team. I can't really think of anyone who I would less rather have be president than Trump.
Thank you.
But,
Thank you, Conley.
that's what the American people wanted, I guess.
Are you gonna stay?
I'm going to stay for the first few months to help help ensure there's a successful transition. Like most of our team is leaving. I'm also a detailee, but my detail doesn't end until July.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I'll actually stay that long. It kind of depends. Like,
Oh, you ain't. You ain't staying that long. Trust me. No, you ain't staying that long. You ain't staying that long, Byron. I'm not sure if I'm going to stay till July. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure you ain't.
how it's going, basically. Like if the new admin like listens to us and like values our expertise, I'll probably stay a little longer.
Yeah, he's not going to value your expertise. I can tell you.
If they try to make our lives difficult or kind of just marginalize us, then
Marginalize us because we're very significant people.
Then there's not as much value in me staying there, and maybe something else. Some of them are political appointees, and those people would be expected to leave at the end of an administration.
So political appointee means that like the president or somebody chose.
Exactly. They're nominated by the president. Okay. So that's like the senior leaders, basically, like the director of the office and his deputies. They're political appointees.
Okay.
The other people are mostly what are called detailees, which means like they're loaned to the White House from other parts of the federal government.
So I was looking at your Bumble profile, and you said that you were a nerd about health policy, and I saw the picture of you shaking the president's hand.
So my PhD was in public health, but then like within that I studied.
What is a PhD in public health? Tell me what the hell that is. What is a PhD in public health? Educate me, because I'm confused. You're not a doctor, right? I mean, you're not a doctor. You're a PhD. So, I mean, it's technically a doctorate, but you're not a practicing medical doctor. So what is a PhD in public health? Is that complete and total hogwash? That's emptiness, right? That's got to be garbage. Like that's basically a kissing cousin to, like, you know, interpretive dance theory kind of thing, right? That has to be. A PE teacher. I'm a doctor of phys ed. What is it? It sounds like the stupidest thing in the world.
Both like healthcare systems and also like infectious disease epidemiology. So I jumped around a bit. Most of my coursework was actually like on healthcare systems. My research was more on like mathematical modeling of infectious diseases. So I work in the White House Office of Pandemic Preparedness and Response Policy. Most of what I focus on is trying to understand how the federal government is investing in medical countermeasures for potential pandemic pathogens.
After experiencing 4 years of a volatile economy.
Oh, I thought he was going to say after experiencing 4 hours of this moron drone on about his extensive education, he finally started giving us something that's really. After sitting there for what felt like 4 years, our honeypot finally got him to start talking about things we care about. But because, oh my God, this sounds like such an incredibly boring date. It really is. Donald Trump takes charge of everything, the way he handles reporters, well, everything. I'm on my feels over here in PA. You can make fun of me now. You should be. He's awesome. He's awesome. I have clips. Don't worry, you should be. He's awesome.
Economy. America is facing record inflation and a massive threat to the US dollar. Experts are warning the stock market could crash and we could be facing a recession.
Well, here we go. This sounds like this is a commercial. Yeah, this definitely sounds like a commercial.
Told us about his disapproval of RFK Jr. Byron admitted that the deep state is real and that RFK will be, quote, crushed by the deep state bureaucracy.
So that I think like RFK Jr. is a very bad pick for HHS.
Can you guys maybe like micromanage RFK a little bit?
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping someone just puts him in a closet. I mean, I honestly think that is probably, there's a good chance that the bureaucracy just crushes him. Because like,
And that would be you guys.
Look at him so excited about that. Unbelievable.
Right?
Not us so much as HHS. And so it's not just a matter of like ordering people to do things you want to do, because they have ways that they can slow things down or block you without you realizing it. They're like, people joke about the deep state, but like to some degree it's real. What I will say is like,
No one's joking.
bureaucracy
It's not a joke.
will do what is in the bureaucracy's interests. Does that make sense?
Can you elaborate?
We need you to be a little more detailed, Mr. Detailee.
A little bit?
Like an agency is not going to want to give up money or control without a fight.
Yeah.
Right? That's natural.
Right.
And there's sort of always ways that they can fight back. Maybe they lose eventually, but like they can slow things down. They can make it annoying. Exactly. And so I don't see him as a guy with like the knowledge and the patience and the humility that would be needed to get the bureaucracy to actually do what he wants them to do.
Because he really knows him intimately well. He knows him really well. I don't see him that
Does
way.
that make sense? Like
So
it's actually really hard.
already don't like him. He's not making it easier to like him, right?
Yeah, like if you come in threatening to fire all of the scientists at NIH that work on infectious disease research, they're by default not going to trust you, right? Why would they? And so, yeah, I suspect he's going to have a harder time getting what he wants done than he thinks.
The White House official describes how the deep state bureaucracy exercises its power and actually accomplishes the objective of slowing down executive decisions. Byron even goes on to state what he will do if given an order that he doesn't agree with, saying he will block it and slow things down.
When you said
It's really unbelievable. It's really the audacity of these folks is really unbelievable.
that the deep state was kind of real,
Yeah.
what did you mean by that?
I just mean like the bureaucracy has its own power and to some extent like desires.
How does that work?
Here's an example. So like in my job, one of the things I've done is like write this report assessing like how the federal government spends its money on medical countermeasures for potential pandemic pathogens and trying to understand like are we spending it on the right stuff, and then came up with some recommendations for how we could improve management of this portfolio. HHS hated this because essentially it amounts to the White House telling them what to do, telling them how to spend their money.
Oh.
And they have ways, like if they don't want to do something, they have ways to kind of fight it. They can slow walk something. They can pretend to be working really hard on something when they're not. Sometimes they can just say no if it's not like coming directly from the president.
Byron Cohen, an advisor at the White House, revealed what the deep state will do to stop incoming Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Can you give me an example of like how you think they'll do it when RFK, like if he gets in and does something crazy?
One thing you might be able to do to like sort of make him think like something is happening when it's not is to sort of put together like a commission to study something. Like, so maybe you say like, all right, we're going to put together, Mr. Secretary, we're going to put together a commission to study the safety of fluoride in water. Mr. Secretary, we're going to put together a commission to study vaccine safety. And we'll let you know when they're...
Has the city been fired yet? Come on. It's Trump. He's working for Trump now. Come on. You think he's still there? You think his desk hasn't been cleaned out? Come on. He wants someone to put RFK in the closet. Why is it really that lonely? Why is it really that lonely in there for this guy? Yeah, I mean, he has a very beta look to him, right? PhD in public health is the guy that locks the doors, responsible for reactions to community health policies, i.e., not a doctor at all. Not at all a doctor. Good to see you, Capstone. Been a while, brother. I think OMG is the reason for lower birth rate. Deep state will not ever go on dates. That's a good thing. If they're not breeding, I guess that's a good thing.
And he'll be like, yes, great. And then years will pass and nothing has happened.
Oh.
You know, there's, you know, a sophisticated bureaucrat can do a lot to run around an unsophisticated political appointee if they want to.
In recent months, many of our fellow Americans experienced unprecedented.
Man. So there you go. I want to see where he gets busted. That's always the best part, right?
OMG at checkout. Byron argues that subverting the will of the American people is justified if the policy position taken by the cabinet member is wrong.
Would it be subverting the will of the people to kind of like crush RFK or block him or whatever? Would that be subverting the will of the American people?
You could argue that the will of the American people was to elect Donald Trump and give them the ability to appoint people he agrees with to the cabinet. I think a counter argument is that for the most part, the American people don't actually agree with RFK's views on things like vaccines. So, I mean, in a literal sense, if you were like blocking something he was trying to do to undermine vaccines, you are probably doing like acting in a way that is consistent with what the majority wants as a policy outcome, but you're also kind of subverting the political process as it is normally meant to operate.
In other words, yes. He basically said, so on the one hand, you're subverting, and the other hand, you're getting in their way. It's like, that wasn't even in English.
If you're on the inside of any government,
So there you go. That was the latest drop from him. I thought that was interesting. I wanted to share with you all. That was the first thing I wanted to watch with you. I got an interesting little side topic that I forgot that I wanted to get to, but I did. I'm just going to throw this out at you because
Gotta spend a minute on the.
I don't know what's the deal. I don't like talking about like personal drama of folks. That's really not what I like talking about. But I can't have you all just completely oblivious to this that became public fodder today, and that's the potential divorce of Barack and Michelle Obama, who she was not by his side at Carter's funeral. She did not attend the inauguration. A lot of tongues are wagging.
Obamas, because there seems to be some momentum picking up in the rumor mill about their marriage. All right, I'm going to bring you what I know. First, on January 15th, in the Substack of Jessica Reed Krause, also known as House and Habit, she's well connected in some circles and worked for RFKJ for a time, right? Didn't she? She was close to RFKJ. Close to. She posts the following. And she's been right about a lot, this gal. Michelle Obama's absence at Jimmy Carter's funeral certainly raised some eyebrows, but yesterday's announcement that she won't be attending Trump's inauguration confirms something is definitely going on between her and Barack. She said whispers about cracks in their relationship have been circulating in D.C. for over a year now, but this feels like the first public proof of a marriage on the rocks. The question now isn't if, but when. If I had to guess, they will wait until after the inauguration to announce it. Timing, is everything. And yet the story doesn't end there. For months, I've heard Jennifer Aniston's name tied to Barack. At first, it seemed ridiculous, but the rumors have remained steady among New York and LA circles. I should reiterate to the audience that Aniston has denied it, saying, I don't even know him. I've seen Michelle more than I've ever seen him. Then Jessica cites a DM she received the day before. Quote, he's with Jennifer Aniston. My old manager, now a friend, is connected to her inner circle. At a gathering with Jennifer's friends, the affair came up casually. Jennifer herself admitted it. They were sitting with a psychic, which makes it sound surreal, but it's definitely not a secret among her closest friends. Then yesterday.
What do you guys think?
Meghan McCain.
Because I got all sorts of questions. Because obviously, in that relationship there, Michelle is the power, right? I mean, she's the power. Would Barack dare stray from that, that power source there? That's the first question I have. I mean, obviously, she's the winner. He's the winner in that relationship. Because what is he? He's just like a president. Some people like him or stuff like that. She's Michelle Obama. Michelle, can he really walk away? Can he really give all that up? Would any right-thinking human ever give all that up for like Jennifer Aniston? Really? Would anyone in their right mind ever trade in Michelle Obama for Jennifer Aniston? It seems inconceivable. It seems like the sort of thing that can never. You have to be dealing in crazy land to think that anyone would ever come from Michelle all the way down to Jennifer Aniston. That sounds like insanity. Logic is just looking at me like I lost my mind. I'm just wondering. I was wondering if I get like feedback from you guys, because to me it sounds like on its face it just sounds impossible. It's just there's no way it's true.
Had a discussion about this on her show, suggesting she is hearing the same. She had on Tara Palmieri, who's a reporter, saying
she has beauty, she has grace, she has brilliance, everything about her. This is what I've been hearing for the last 15 years. It's just amazingness. It's just, would you really give all that up? I don't know.
fast and furious loud. I've been hearing this rumor about the Obamas getting a divorce from reputable people. I'm not talking about TMZ, she says. I'm talking about very serious journalists telling me they are hearing that the Obama divorce rumors are true. And Tara, who's a senior political correspondent for Puck, says, I've certainly heard it for a while too, even before Michelle said she wasn't coming to the inauguration. I do not know whether this is true at all, but if it is true, it truly would be a political earthquake in Democrat circles. Never mind America. I don't remember a presidential divorce in modern history. What do you guys make of it?
Oh, man.
So I started hearing murmurs about this a while ago too, and I guess so. I asked Ashbrook, and he confirmed it. Ashbrook was like, because he hangs out.
Was
with a
a
lot
psychic
of
there?
we did it with.
I don't really care about this part of it. Anyway, so yeah, that's what stumbled into my feed, and I was just astonished because I don't think Barack is crazy enough to ever walk away from pretty much the definition of womanhood in Michelle Obama. I mean, come on. I know he's got charm and everything. This is true. He's got some swag. I'm just saying, what man could ever tear himself away? Could ever manage to tear himself away from Michelle Obama? I don't know if I've ever met the man. Gee, Sharkman, becoming a YouTube member, a wise move on your part, because I think you're feeling the personal growth right here and now. You're feeling it. As we're talking about Michelle Obama, it just helps you evolve into a greater and bigger man. Welcome aboard, Gee, Sharkman. Have Hillary file the papers for security. That's definitely a thought. Definitely a thought. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you before I got on in. Let's start catching you all up on what Trump's been busy with, because Trump's been a busy man. Here are the executive orders from today. This is just today, because he's got a lot to do. He knows he's like, all right, I'm basically down to 1,434 days. So let me get on this. And we all love to see it. No way. Kamala divorcing her husband. Also, that's crazy. Kamala and Doug forever. I'm Team Dougie. That whole party's in shambles. So here's Trump doing what he does best, which is wielding a pen.
So, very important in
and talking about it.
just about every case. And it will go through the first one, please.
Do you want to? Yeah, Mr. President, this is an executive order on crypto. We're going to be. Oh, sorry, we're doing AI. I'm sorry. This is an executive order on AI. We're basically announcing the administration's policy to make America the world capital in artificial intelligence and to dominate and to lead the world in AI.
World capital in AI.
Your full name,
David Sachs, AI and crypto czar.
David is one of the greatest in the world at AI. Most respected, probably there is. So that should take us to the forefront, right?
I love how his signature looks like a cardiogram.
Okay.
Very distinct signature.
Thank you. And this, David, is?
Yeah, this is the crypto EO. We're going to be forming an internal working group to make America the world capital in crypto under your leadership.
Which is really going up, right?
Absolutely.
All right, David, that's for you. Thanks.
You know what's coming.
You
want to know what's coming?
They might not be excited, but we're going to make a lot of money for the country.
Thank you, sir.
I have not yet seen the Michelle birthday pic that Obama posted. Now I'm curious, though. What's a Dobbin? What's a Dobbin? I don't even know what a Dobbin is. Tennis pro, strong backhand, Doug Pimp.
And so is David. You have to check him out. There's nobody like this guy. They said, how did you get David Sachs? How did you do that? And he's doing it for the country more than anything else. So we appreciate it, David. Thank you.
Breck Nichols asking name for Ghetto Street. How about Shlomo? No. I don't mean a Jewish name. I mean like a Yiddish name, like a name of a street, not just Shlomo. Not just Shlomo. No, it's got to have like a lot of, like a lichtige yantiv. Like it's got to be something that none of you can pronounce. That's what makes it ghetto. I'll work on it. I'll come up with stuff.
Thank you very much.
This is an executive order establishing a presidential commission, an advisory commission on science and technology.
Good.
This one I don't care about so much.
To make sure that America maintains its leadership position with respect to science and technology development in the years ahead.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Next. What's next?
Next, sir, we have a presidential memorandum encouraging departments and agencies in your government, including the Department of the Interior, to promote federal recognition of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina.
I love the Lumbee tribe. So this is their first big step, right?
This would be a huge step for them.
Yeah, they were with me all the way. They were great.
I love the Lumbee tribe.
Lumbee tribe.
We love the Lumbee tribe. I can watch this all day. Watch this all day.
Okay, you'll send them a copy of that?
Yes, sir.
They were great. Okay,
And if you'd like, I could get them that pen, sir, as well.
yeah, let's do that.
What we got next?
Next, we have a set of pardons for peaceful pro-life protesters who were prosecuted by the Biden administration for exercising their First Amendment rights.
Oh,
I believe it's 23, sir.
23 people were prosecuted. They should not have been prosecuted. Many of them are elderly people. They should not have been prosecuted. This is a great honor to sign this.
on that. What was on? I don't know if it's this story. I'm not sure if it's this story. This is from January 20th. I'm not sure if this is the same story because that's January 20th. And this happened earlier today. So it's got to be a different one. But once we're talking on that, I sort of had this in the background, like maybe I'll share this, maybe I won't.
So did y'all hear about this? No, you didn't hear about it. You know why? Because it makes Trump look good. They don't want anything to make Trump look good. Trump pardons pro-life activist Beverly Williams, who was imprisoned by the Biden administration for protesting outside abortion clinic. This lady been in prison or in jail all this time. Kamala didn't make a peep about this. She didn't talk about it in her speeches. All she wanted to do was bring out Megan Thee Stallion and Glorilla to twerk and give Beyonce all y'all money that y'all donated. I ain't talking about y'all, but the people who don't like my videos, the ones that come over here creeping like roaches and come and tell me about myself, tell me I'm not black enough. Well, she must have wasn't black enough for y'all because y'all didn't even care about her being locked up. Well, now she's free. Thank you, God, and thank you, Trump, the non-racist president.
I can't make that sound. Anyhow, I can't. I could try, but it wouldn't work. Let's get back to Trump. Doing his thing.
They'll be very happy. So they're all in prison now.
Some are out of custody.
It's ridiculous. Okay?
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades.
Declassification of the JFK files, the
And
RFK
everything
files,
will be revealed.
and Martin Luther King file.
Okay.
All those 3 assassinations
Do that
declassified.
to RFK Jr.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Wow. 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 Lots of presidents talked about doing it. Here's a man who seems like he actually is serious about doing it. Now, are they declassified? I will tell you, earlier today when I saw this, I put in a FOIA request for the JFK assassination files from the FBI. I saw this. I was like, they're probably going to do it by like a line. Let me get in front on the line. So when you make a FOIA request, it's like a 9-step thing that you have to fill out. And I did make a FOIA request. But I should give you a warning on this. Just because he signed this, they're not technically declassified just yet. Looks like they're declassified, but I think this woman's read of the particular statute, of the particular executive order that was signed by Trump, I think this is probably a more accurate read as to will my FOIA request be honored by the FBI? Answer, maybe not. It might be stonewalled in the short term, as she points out.
Okay, the JFK files are being released, but people are getting a little ahead of themselves. First, the news reported on it, but they didn't put the entire executive order. So now it's actually published so I can read it. This is what got everyone excited because it says, I have now determined that the continued redaction and withholding of information from records pertaining to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy is not consistent with the public interest, and the release of these records is long overdue. But then the next section says this. Within 15 days of the date of this order, the Director of National Intelligence and the Attorney General shall present a plan to the President for the full and complete release of records relating to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. So it doesn't say within 15 days you need to release it. It says within 15 days they need to present a plan to the President to release it. So after they present a plan, what happens next? Does he still need to give the okay to release the record? And then within 45 days, they have to do the same thing, come up with a plan for Senator Robert F. Kennedy and the Dr. Martin Luther King records. So I was really excited when I saw that Trump signed the executive order, but this is exactly why I don't like to trust the media and I like to just read things right from the source myself. So be excited. This is great momentum, but it's not over quite yet.
And I agree with that. I don't think it's over quite yet. I don't think that they're released quite yet. I think that we still need to wait for the further steps to happen. Earliest we'll see anything here will be middle to late February. So, yeah, my FOIA request, I don't expect it to be honored by the state, but we'll see. He was born to run the world. I saw someone put out there that there's the Republicans were trying to make an amendment to the Constitution to enable Trump to have a third term today. Oh, how to fry a leftist brain. It says up to 45 days. It says on the White House website. Yeah. Joe Jones, you're awesome. I will follow. What? Joe Jones? Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Mr. President, a U.S. judge temporarily blocks the birthright citizenship order. Do you have any reaction?
No, obviously we'll appeal it. They put it before a certain judge in Seattle, I guess, right? And there's no surprises with that judge.
Mr. President, Senators Collins and Murkowski have now said they will vote
He doesn't know the name of the judge. I'm pretty sure he doesn't. He's just like, it's a Seattle judge. Come on.
against Pete Hegseth. Are you worried about his confirmation and your reaction?
And no surprises there. It's too bad. You know, it's the way it is. Too bad.
And when would you adjourn Congress to make recess appointments, Mr. President?
Well, I'd take a look at that. I'd listen to John Thune. He's doing a fantastic job. We're moving along. The Democrats are trying to delay government, as they always do. They can't help themselves. Even John Ratcliffe, who's very, very strong, very popular, and liked by the Democrats. I guess he gets a lot of Democrat votes. That's taking a long time, and it shouldn't be taking a long time. They're maxing everything out so they can delay everything as much as possible.
Does Senator Thune support an effort to use recess appointments if you choose to do that?
I'd be willing to use recess appointments. It's up to John, and we'll see. And John Thune's a great guy, great senator, knows his stuff inside out and backwards. But I would use recess appointments if he wants to do that. Absolutely. The Democrats are just delaying. They always delay.
Mr. President, you spoke with the Saudi Crown Prince yesterday.
Who?
The Saudi Crown Prince. How was the call?
Right.
They said $600 billion they're gonna invest.
600. I'll ask him for $1 trillion.
You said you're gonna.
Rick Nichols saying, I don't know Jewish from Yiddish. It's all Greek to me. That was clever. What's clever? I'm glad you didn't say that when my dad was on. If you had sent this thing saying, I don't know Jewish from Yiddish, it's all Greek to me, he would have told a story that I've heard him tell many times. Many times. In English, we say it's all Greek to me. My father speaks Hebrew, Yiddish, French, some German, Arabic. He's very highly multilingual. When he was in France talking to another Jewish guy, and he likes engaging his French whenever he can. And in French, the idiom is it's not all Greek to me. It's all Hebrew to me. That's literally what instead of saying it's all Greek to me, they say it's all Hebrew to me. That's the French idiom. So that means the same thing. So he said he was talking to this guy in Hebrew, and then they switched over to French, and then the guy brought up some issue that my father didn't know much about. He's like, I don't know much about that. And he said in French, it's all Hebrew to me. It's pretty funny. And the two of them just started laughing. He thought it was hilarious. He tells that story a lot. So.
For $1 trillion. Will Saudi Arabia be the first foreign country you will visit since they invest in that much?
Well, if they do that, I would. Yeah. I would be glad to do that. I did it, as you know, 4 years ago. We did $450 billion, meaning the money all goes to American companies, and they purchase jets and they purchase computers and everything else. And we did $450 billion, and I guess we're at 650. And I'll see if I can talk him into it.
I don't believe again. You showed great confidence in Steve Witkoff. Why
All right.
you said that?
These questions are boring me. So we're going to move on. Their questions are boring me. He's not boring me, but their questions are. So they're talking about topics that we don't need to worry about. We do not need to worry about. So let's start talking about the border a little bit.
Shifting priorities with
and steps that are happening to start shutting down the border, in addition to sending, 10,000 troops to the border already? This is what's happening. Hey, guy, that's right. Look at the caption here. This is great. I'm not going back to Haiti. Yes, you are.
I'm not going back to Haiti. One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me?
My man.
Forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
ICE Boston quickly takes down its next targets, including this illegal alien from Brazil who has an Interpol red notice for armed robbery. This Salvadoran illegal alien charged locally with rape and released by a sanctuary jurisdiction.
Señor, ¿cómo se llama?
And this Dominican illegal alien charged with assault with a deadly weapon and heroin trafficking. Officers also arrested this Guatemalan MS-13 gang member facing gun charges. ICE says he was released from local custody just the day before. Their detainer request
Released
was
a
ignored
day
because
earlier.
of sanctuary policies.
Sanctuary
And in a sign of
policies.
shifting priorities with the new Trump administration.
That's what I think he needs to. He needs to basically. Someone needs to tell him to make an EO abolishing sanctuary cities as being contrary to federal policy about immigration. I would love to see that legal battle.
Administration, this man, who was in the same apartment as the target, was also arrested after ICE determined he's also in the U.S. illegally. This is what ICE calls collateral.
So you guys got your main target just now, but you got somebody else. What just happened?
So our main target was released by a sanctuary jurisdiction, not honoring a detainer. That person was released back into the community, and when we went to go find him, he's with somebody else who was previously removed from the United States. So he's going to go today too.
And that is exactly what Border Czar Tom Homan has warned would happen.
When we find the bad guy, he's probably with others that are in the United States illegally. They may not be a criminal priority, but we're not walking away from them.
ICE Boston said
That's a great thing, because by making this, I like that he's not just enacting this policy, but stating the policy helps isolate these people. It's good. It's a good thing. You want them isolated.
as they will continue to go into sanctuary jurisdictions.
Because if you're an illegal alien and you know that the illegal alien next to you is someone who has a record, you're going to want to basically, you're not going to want him around, because you're like, if I have you here and ICE comes here and picks you up, I'm out of here.
And do their job.
Today was a good day. Today we took several significant public safety threats out of our communities. Unfortunately, a lot were released by sanctuary policies, but we're here to tell the Commonwealth and the rest of the country that we're going to find them whether they're released or not.
And guys, shortly after we finished filming, ICE Boston told us they arrested 2 more targets in other parts of town away from our cameras. One of those targets is a previously deported Honduran illegal alien who was arrested for raping a woman while putting a gun in her mouth. The other target they got is a Haitian man who first flew into the United States in 2023 as part of President Biden's controversial migrant flights mass parole program. Well, they just picked him up yesterday because he's been arrested locally for sexual assault. We'll send it back to you.
Discover recipes a registered
was
dietitians
fascinating
love.
to watch
like
all of
baked
that.
curry
I
spice
was
cod.
just saying to Bill, this is terrible for Joe Biden and the legacy that he tried to leave behind. A question from me: how soon will they actually be leaving the country? Does that take a long time?
It depends what country they're from. If they're from cooperable countries like El Salvador, Guatemala, countries like that, it can be quick. It can be within days or weeks. If it's countries that are harder to deport, countries that don't cooperate with the U.S. as much, it can go into a process of months. But the Trump administration is changing policies with something called expedited removal. The bottom line is people at home don't need to understand all the policies. The Trump administration is just going to work as fast as they can to get all the people you just saw on camera there out of the country as fast as possible. They're also going to use their State Department.
We don't care if the state's helping them. To hell with these losers.
Now led by Marco Rubio to put pressure on countries that don't cooperate with the U.S. as much when it comes to those deportations.
Bill, just two points of clarification here. It seems a lot of these crimes are associated with sex crimes. I'm just looking at the list a bit earlier today. I don't know if that generally is the case or not. And second, if Boston's a sanctuary city, how are they allowed to do this? Because we told there would be resistance.
Boston doesn't have to cooperate with ICE, but there's nothing they can do to stop ICE from coming into their city and enforcing the law. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. And that's the point ICE makes to us is, look, they don't have to cooperate with our detainer requests. They don't have to tell our officers when they're releasing somebody from jail. But we're going to do our job. We have our intel guys out in the field. We have people with eyes all over the place, and we're going to snatch those guys. So they can make ICE's job more difficult, longer, and more dangerous, but it's not going to stop ICE from doing the job, guys. The bottom line is ICE says it's safer for everybody involved if locals would just hand these guys over in jail once they're arrested, but they don't. They let them out onto the streets. They don't tell ICE about it. So ICE has to spend a lot of resources gathering intel, finding these guys, and then going out into the community to do arrests, which could be dangerous. You saw that combative Haitian man. And then you saw in the case of that one MS-13 member, his friend got snagged. They weren't even looking for him. They were looking for the MS-13 guy. They picked him up because a sanctuary jurisdiction released the MS-13 guy. ICE found him and then found the guy who was in the apartment with. They found out he was an illegal alien as well. So now he's going to be deported too.
Wow.
Amazing. Bill Malhusian, thank you so much. More to
Yes,
come on
underway.
that.
Thank you, Bill.
So there you go. There you go. Policies are beginning to get enacted. And this gets the likes of Omar to weigh in here. The likes of Omar to weigh in, because she understands what it means to be an American. Omar Ilan, standing next to Senator Mazie Hirono.
It is hard to imagine anything more un-American than that. The Trump administration's immigration policy is a threat to immigrants like criminals. America is too great to fall prey to Donald Trump's anti-immigrant agenda.
This woman who barely speaks English, she understands so much about so much better than Americans about what America is all about. That's what she does. This woman, frankly, I hope she gets deported. There's all sorts of talk that she got in here by claiming she was married to her brother. I think nothing would be more awesome than watching Trump deport Ilhan Omar. I would love to see that happen. Oh my God, I would so love to see that happen.
We need to restore basic humanity to our immigration system, and that
humanity
starts with repealing the Alien Enemies Act of 1798.
The Alien Enemies Act of 1798. That's not American. We need to repeal that. That's right. It was signed off on by John Adams, founder of this country, but he didn't really understand what it means to be American compared to this Machshefa. She understands. She totally gets it, what it is to be American. John Adams doesn't really understand. He didn't really understand. She understands what it is to be American. Go to hell, you loser.
With our Neighbors Not Enemies Act. Together, we
Neighbors
will
Not Enemies Act. What a clown. Stupid
this
clown.
xenophobic law once and for all. It is hard.
So, this is Neighbors Not Enemies. What the hell's wrong with you, stupid, crazy lunatics? This is why they lost. I hope as long as she stays in this country, she continues shouting her ridiculous anti-American policies as being like what she defines as being American, because it's the most alienating thing imaginable. I'll tell you right now, in my heart of hearts, I will always believe it. This is purely a statement of opinion what I'm about to state, but I will always believe that she cheats in her elections to stay in there. And there's all sorts of reports that people have about buying votes and paying people $50 to fill out their ballot. I'm not saying that as a statement of fact. I'm saying as a statement of opinion based on what I have, based on various reports I have seen. But this Machshefa, this sick witch, this sick witch. I hope her days in this country are numbered, and she's returned back to Somalia, whatever backward corner of the planet she actually comes from, telling us what's American. But as long as she's here, I hope she keeps skunking the Democratic Party by continuing to basically tell everyone that what's American far better than the founding fathers. That's a very winning argument right there. First ICE agent injured or worse needs to sue the F out of Maureen Healy and that useless Boston mayor. That's agreed, 100%. Ilhan came as a legal refugee as a child. Her brother went to UK as a refugee. She married him to let him come here. I'm all for her to go to bye-bye. Oh, is that the way it was? She helped her brother stay? Oh, that sucks. That sucks. All right. And one more quick story here, just so you can appreciate how awesome it is having Donald back. God, I've missed having him. Was it this amazing the first time, or were we just more? Do you think it was this amazing the first time? Or do you think that there's so much more work to be done because Biden was so bad? Or, that's number two, just put 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. I'm not doing a thing right now. But 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. It was this amazing, we just forgot. Or it's more amazing because there's a lot of territory for him to crush. Or it was really just this. Wait, that would be number 2. Wait, I had 3. Now I'm confused. Now I confused myself. It feels totally different. It feels totally different. It feels. Am I the only one who thinks that this feels like way better than the first time? It feels way better than the first time. Yeah, I think it's 4. Like so much better than the first time. Every day I'm excited to see like what new EO he's signing. There's so much to correct.
My administration is acting with unprecedented speed to fix the disasters we've inherited from a totally inept group of people and to solve every single crisis facing our country. This begins with confronting the economic chaos caused by the failed policies of the last administration. Over the past 4 years, our government racked up $8 trillion in wasteful deficit spending and inflicted nation-wrecking energy restrictions, crippling regulations, and hidden taxes like never before. The result is the worst inflation crisis in modern history and sky-high interest rates for our citizens and even throughout the world. Food prices and the price of almost every other thing known to mankind went through the roof.
Food prices, the prices of almost every other thing known to mankind. He's so Trump. He's so Trump. He says things in ways no other person can say them. Food prices and the prices of almost every other thing known to mankind have gone through the roof.
President Biden totally lost control of what was going on in our country, but in particular with our high inflation economy and at our border. Because of these ruinous policies, total government spending this year is $1.5 trillion higher than was projected to occur when I left office just 4 years ago. Likewise, the cost of servicing the debt is more than 230% higher than was projected in 2020. The inflation rate we are inheriting remains 50% higher than the historic target. It was the highest inflation probably in the history of our country. That's why from the moment I took office, I've taken rapid action to reverse each and every one of these radical left policies that created this calamity.
This calamity.
In particular with immigration, crime, and inflation. On day one, I signed an executive order directing every member of my cabinet to marshal all powers at their disposal to defeat inflation and reduce the cost of daily life. I imposed a federal hiring freeze, a federal regulation freeze, a foreign aid freeze, and I created the new Department of Government Efficiency.
Whoa. Whoa. Let's go back and hear what he did so far. These are the steps he's taken.
Member of my cabinet to marshal all powers at their disposal to defeat inflation and reduce the cost of daily life. I imposed a federal hiring freeze, a federal regulation freeze, a foreign aid freeze, and I created
no more money going to foreign aid.
The new Department of Government Efficiency. I terminated the ridiculous and incredibly wasteful Green New Deal. I call it the Green New Scam. Withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord and ended the insane and costly electric vehicle mandate.
Like I said, he's been busy. He's been busy.
Gonna let people buy the car they want to buy. I declared a national energy emergency, and it's so important, national energy emergency to unlock the liquid gold under our feet and pave the way for rapid approvals of new energy infrastructure.
Fact check, it's not under our feet, okay? You're in Washington, D.C. There's not any evidence that there's oil right under where your feet are. Fact check, liar, liar, liar. Sorry. That was your leftist messaging of the day.
The United States has the largest amount of oil and gas of any
It is so
country
much
on
better.
earth, and we're going to use it. Not only will this reduce the cost of virtually all goods and services, it'll make the United States a manufacturing superpower and the world capital of artificial
Designed in 8
intelligence and
months.
crypto. My administration has also begun the largest deregulation campaign in history, far exceeding even the record-setting efforts of my last term.
Deregulation. I told Liberty Lockdown he should be celebrating.
In total, the Biden administration imposed $50,000 in additional regulatory costs on the average American household over the last 4 years. I have promised to eliminate 10 old regulations for every new regulation, which will soon put many thousands of dollars back in the pockets of American families. To further unleash our economy, our majorities in the House and Senate, which we also took along with the presidency, are going to pass the largest tax cut in American history, including massive tax cuts for workers and family, and big tax cuts for domestic producers and manufacturers. And we're working with the Democrats on getting an extension of the original Trump tax cuts, as you probably know, by just reading any paper. My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth.
That's a nice incentive. That's a businessman who understands how businesses work. Come do your stuff here. Create jobs here. And we'll make it financially worth your while. That's a person who understands more, a little bit more about how the economy operates or how businesses operate than price gouging. We're going to stop price gouging. It's like so the opposite. It's so the opposite. He's luring companies here. He's bringing them on in here compared to the whole, we're coming after you because your prices are too high. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Really, really good. Really, really good. All right. I want to get on into this. It's time for us to start talking. This wasn't it. Where are you? I want to get on in with you about the case to get Fauci. The case to get Fauci. It's time for us to go after Fauci. It's time for us to bring down Fauci, and not just Fauci, but the J6 committee. And I did some research today. In fact, I did a lot of legal research today. Today, I spent most of my day today. Normally, I spend my day just reading, like flipping through X. Today, I was reading. I was reading Supreme Court decisions. I was reading law review journals. I spent this morning going through this 100-page law review article that has a whole bunch of likes, which was talking about the birthplace citizenship and the origin and text and how it was and how it's properly read in context with the language of the time. And I'm also, and that's what so this way I feel as if I understand more about the birthright citizenship argument, I think, than most people I've spoken with or heard from. I figure I'm probably going to talk about it tomorrow on layback law. It's almost certainly going to come up, the whole birthright citizenship. Most of the arguments I already laid out yesterday, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the birthright citizenship issue. If you want to catch that, I highly recommend you check out that show last night that I covered, where I basically was walking everyone through the birthright citizenship issue in the 14th Amendment and why it is that the Wong Kim Ark case doesn't do anything to intercede with Trump's ability to clarify the federal government's take on denying the grant of citizenship to anyone who's born 30 days as of February 20th or so, and that they should not be recipients of Social Security numbers. They should not be recipients of American passports, and that they are not American. The Constitution doesn't confer upon them status of that nature. And frankly, it even applies, I mean, put aside illegal aliens for a minute. This comes up all the time with respect to some French woman visits America for a week, gives birth on American soil. Is that kid an American citizen? And most people probably grew up thinking, yeah, they are. They're born on American soil. But that the language of subject to the jurisdiction of the United States really doesn't imply that. It really implies that that is an extra hurdle that they almost certainly are not fulfilling, and that we've been gifting these citizenship statuses, stati, whatever, to all these visitors who give birth while they're here, illegal aliens who are born in this country, and that they never should have been getting it any time in the last 50 years. And his right to clarify that we're not going to be granting that any longer is completely consistent with Supreme Court precedent. Moreover, I'll point out that the Wong Kim Ark case is really not on point at all. One of the things I didn't realize when I brought down, I should bring up when I wrap up my conversation about this particular topic, that I should have brought up yesterday, but I didn't realize it, is I mentioned how the status of his parents as being permanently domiciled in this country was a significant factor that is repeatedly brought up in the Wong Kim Ark case. The Wong Kim Ark case, those of you who missed yesterday's show, just the sum and substance, it's a Supreme Court decision from the 1890s where a 20-year-old kid, 22-year-old kid who was Chinese, born here in this country after the 14th Amendment was ratified. So it was ratified in 1866. He's born 1871 or thereabouts. And when he's 20 years old, he goes to visit China. When he comes back, they don't want to let him in the country. And he says, I'm an American citizen under the 14th Amendment. And the Supreme Court agreed with him that he's an American citizen. And what they basically stressed is his parents are permanently domiciled in this country. Now, I didn't understand what that means when they say permanently domiciled. I didn't appreciate the nature and context of that language. The reason his parents were permanently domiciled in this country is because there was a law that prohibited Chinese people from being granted citizenship status, meaning his parents were citizens that by law could not become citizens because there was a specific, frankly, racial law prohibiting Chinese people from ever attaining citizenship status. And accordingly, even though they went through all the hurdles that anyone else going through would have been considered American citizens, and they, pledged their, they had agreed to submit their allegiance to this country. All of that didn't help them because of the law that precluded Chinese people from being granted the status of being citizens. So, and the court made a big deal about the fact that their parents were basically citizens in all but name. They were citizens, just in name, they could not be citizens. So now, and based on that, they're saying, so now you have this status here, where based on that status of he's the child, and under the 14th Amendment, he's fulfilled basically every other possible requirement he could, that they could, for him to be granted citizenship status. And that's why they said that this kid, Wong Kim Ark, is a citizen. And that he's subjected himself to the jurisdiction of the United States. Because there's nothing else he could have done to subject himself to the United States. So all these people here who are saying, well, you're born on American soil, that concept is called jus soli. Jus soli, spelled J-U-S S-O-L-I. It's a Latin phrase, which means like from the soil, the justice of the soil. That by virtue of standing on the soil, that's what conceptually is what makes you the citizen of that particular country. But the jus soli argument only works if there's that display of fealty to the nation. If you display that you're subjecting yourself to the jurisdiction of the country. Stark contrast from an illegal alien, who by virtue of the fact that they are an illegal alien by walking in here, when you're an illegal alien by virtue of walking into the country, you are showing I am willing to flout the laws of this country. The laws of this country are I cannot come here. I am, however, ignoring that and walking on in here. So what you are showing is your belief that you are not subject to the laws of the country. So if anyone should be shown to be on this soil and not of this country, not subjected to the jurisdiction of the country, it's someone who's a legal alien. That by dint of the fact that they are an illegal alien. So I think it's a pretty strong argument. The more I read this law review article, which was very timely put out by I don't remember her first name. Her last name was Swearer. It was a really well-written article, very well-written article. And I thought the arguments there were very compelling. Anyhow, but I didn't want to, that's not the focus for tonight. That's not the focus tonight. I'm going to get through the super chats. There might be a couple of super chats on this topic. So I want to get through those super chats, and then I want to zero in on the pardons. And I want to zero in on what the pardons are, how they operate, what do they do, and what do they not do, based on Supreme Court precedent. And what doorways this opens up, and why it is that that they should certainly be charged for any crime, investigated and charged appropriately for any crimes that they committed. I was brainwashed by libs the first time. I'm so MAGA now. It was you and Daniana and others, loyalty with Jason, that are Trump supporters who flipped me. You're welcome. I'm sure you're a much happier person now. Better because he learned so much over the last 8 years. That's a good point. That's a great point, Janelle. Alaska has less snow than Pensacola, Florida. That is weird. These EOs need to be codified into law, which isn't so easy. If not, the next Democratic president just nullifies them and nothing changes, and we're asking God a pardon. I'm going to talk about the pardons. We're getting there. We're getting there. Remember, for 13 months, Karen. Go, girl. My German contingency. Oh, I forgot to share with you a story. You're going to like this. The first night when I was on my trip down to DC, this is a quick story here. So I went to the conservative caucus meeting, convention, whatever it was. This is headed by Jim Pfaff. I don't know. PFAFF. Pfaff. He's a well-known guy on X. I was hanging there with Diligent. He's introducing me to a whole bunch of folks that he knows because everyone knows Dilly. And one of them was this reporter who was talking about how she's not permitted to, she's from Germany and she's not allowed to return to Germany because of things she's reported there which were too right-leaning. So that she's basically been banished by her own country from Germany. And showed a video where there was some sort of rally or something like that, or there was some sort of protest where the German police were just, beating up on some protesters with batons. And I was like, wow, that's so weird. Who would have ever thought that Germany would be so authoritarian? And everyone, it took like a second, and then who would have ever thought? That's crazy. Did you mention Senator Jacob Howard's statement on the legislative intent of the born part of the 14th Amendment? I did not. No, I didn't. I read a statement from Howard. So perhaps it came up in passing when I was doing it yesterday. Not true. Obama plays for the other team. Yeah, I have questions about it. That's part of the questions I had about the whole Jennifer Aniston thing. I was like, I don't know about Jennifer. I would think Matt LeBlanc before Jennifer Aniston for Barack. That's what I would have assumed. I would assume, if Barack's looking for a new friend, I'm just saying, I don't think he would go first to Jennifer Aniston. I think before Jennifer Aniston, he's more likely to, basically look for David Schwimmer. Just saying. Boomer, we say it's all Chinese to me. Oh, you're the French? You're the French? Are you French? I'm just telling you the story as I heard it. Member for 11 months. Nice. Nice. Well done, Pam. Coming up to a year. Wow, full year. All right. Let's get on in. Let me check the ghetto first, make sure. Denise says Pete Hegseth has voted yes on confirmation 51-40. It was 51-49, so Murkowski can suck it. LOL. I hate these rounds. They really, really need to go. I agree with you. They really need to go. I don't think that was the final word on the confirmation, though. I don't think that was the final word on confirmation. I think that was like a first round. It was. I need to look into that because they say he's still not confirmed. I saw that he had a vote on cloture. This is what I saw at times, which was on a 51-49 vote that came down almost along party lines. Republicans broke a Democratic filibuster, clearing away the final hurdle to a confirmation vote, now expected on Friday evening. So you would think that the 51 who voted to go to a vote are all going to be supporting him. So Lisa Murkowski can suck it. I agree with you on that. Let's get on in. I don't know who these gentlemen are. I'm not going to kid you. I don't know any of these gentlemen. This is Dr. David Martin, I guess is the one on the bottom. He's the one who does most of the talking. But he's the one who started me running down and looking up the issue of pardons, and particularly a Supreme Court case known as Burdick versus the United States, which we're going to be looking through a little bit.
Has no bearing on an impeachable offense. And the Senate today, if it wanted to, could institute articles of impeachment against Anthony Fauci, for which he would actually ultimately be liable. And why would that be important? Well, it'd be important because on 5 occasions, he has perjured himself in front of Congress, where he has said he did not do gain-of-function research, despite the fact that in October of 2014, in a letter written from NIAID to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, he specifically says Ralph Barick's work with the Wuhan Institute of Virology Virus 1. Listen to what I just said. 2014, the work with the Wuhan Institute of Virology Virus 1. Does that cause anybody a little tiny tadpole of concern that in 2014 he was weaponizing the Wuhan Institute of Virology Virus 1 by name in 2014? And it was so egregious that not only did he have to send a waiver letter to UNC Chapel Hill saying you can keep doing the gain of function research, he added that you could do it in vivo, meaning you could put it in living systems. And he did one extra little detail, which is he acknowledged that it was in violation of the gain of function moratorium. What makes all of this helpful is that the pardon that Joe Biden gave him is effective June of 2014. There are some people that say it could go to January of 2014, depending on what you read. But the great news is,
I don't know. I guess the argument is saying January. I don't know why you would go. Okay, I'm not sure why that's confused.
Ralph Barick and that project and NIAID's funding for the project started, are you ready for this? In 2013, which means the crime that led to the terrorism that led to the world shutting down is not subject to the pardon. So whether we go down the pathway of the impeachable offense argument with the United States Senate, whether we go down the pathway of the racketeering leading to domestic terrorism, leading to global murder, the fact of the matter is this pardon is an admission of guilt of a crime.
Is it an admission of guilt? Do you think it's an admission of guilt, a pardon? Do you think a pardon is an admission of guilt? Is it an admission of guilt? And if it's an admission of guilt, what the hell is pardoning all crimes in the last 10 years when we don't even know what crimes there are? What's he admitting the guilt to?
According to the Burdick principle laid down in 1915,
that's the Burdick case we're going to be looking at.
It's an admission of the guilt for the crime.
That is true. That's part of what we're going to see in Burdick. Those of you who guessed that it's not an admission of guilt. Which honestly, if you had asked me, I would have been with Ann over here. I would have said, no, it's not an admission of guilt. Burdick court says it is. Burdick court, it says this is an admission of guilt. We're going to see.
Its acceptance is tantamount to, are you ready for this? The admission and acceptance of a confession. That's what it actually says in the Burdick ruling in 1915. So the great news is, this is a terrible day to be Bill Gates. This is a terrible day to be Jeremy Farrar at the Wellcome Trust. This is a terrible day to be part of the CDC Foundation or the illegal foundations that run around the CDC or World Health Organization or any of these others. It's a terrible day to be part of the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board at the World Health Organization, which is a racketeering criminal conspirator group that's been in place since the 1950s for the sole purpose of weaponizing nature against humanity. It's a bad day for all of them because now we've got an admission of guilt of the senior board member and orchestrator of this global terror campaign. So, does Dave Martin feel like this is a tough day to be alive? Heck no. We got more weapons in our arsenal in the last 24 hours than we had in the last 4 years.
Before we go any further into,
so Mr. Martin here, sorry, Dr. Martin here, seems to not be worried by these pardons. He seems to not be worried by these pardons at all. At all. At all. At all. What do these pardons do? What do they not do based on at least Supreme Court precedent? One of the things he brought up is that under the Burdick rule, it's considered an admission of guilt. Let's talk about that in just a moment. Howard stated that the citizenship part of the 14th excludes persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, or who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. So, and when you're looking at Supreme Court, and you're looking at a statute or a constitutional amendment, the difference, particularly with respect to the Constitution, is where this comes up far more. You can look at it as an originalist, you can look at it as a textualist, and you'll come to different conclusions. Or you can look at it as a living, breathing document. Those are the three most common ways of looking at it. There are subcategories of each of those, which I'm not going to burden you all with. But originalist is basically like, what was the original objective? The original objective, everyone understands. The original objective was to have an amendment which basically was designed to protect the newly freed slaves. That they could not be denied citizenship in states which seemed adverse to their interests. This was in 1860. This was 1866. We had recently ended the Civil War, and the North was forcing the South to recognize the citizenship of newly freed slaves and saying, we're not letting you. And that's why the Republicans came in very hard, because they were the ones who freed the slaves. The Republicans are the ones who freed the slaves. And they came down very hard on the Democrats. And they said that all those people who were your slaves are citizens. A large part of the contrast there from illegal aliens is that, and part of the argument that I think Howard, is one of the senators, raised, is they don't have any other place to label as home. They've been here 5 generations, many of them. And they have no other place to label as home, which is why they're under our jurisdiction. whatever country they may have come from, doesn't matter. You know, Ethiopia, Ghana, it doesn't matter. It's like so many generations ago. This is their home. And that's why, since they don't have any other place that has jurisdiction over them, that's part of why they are citizens. The question always is, the question with those commas is the or that you inserted there is aliens, the who belong to families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. So that seems to be saying the who over here seems to be trying to eliminate the commas. They're foreigners, aliens who belong to families of ambassadors. You wouldn't really refer to the families of ambassadors as aliens. It's a weird word to use. So I agree with you that those are different classifications, but that's the argument that would be made. Anyway, so an originalist would say that's who it's designed to help. It was never designed to cover Native Americans, who back then, let's face it, everyone called them Indians. It was not designed to cover Indians. And I agree with you that it was not designed to cover people visiting. Someone comes in for a month and leaves. And even though there's some jurisdiction over that person, you're not allowed to, they're protected by the state. You're not allowed to just murder them when they show up here. You'll be held accountable if you murdered them. And they would be held accountable if they murdered someone else. But that's not what we mean when we talk about jurisdiction. That means a complete, an absolute jurisdiction. I agree. The Christian Choir. Master Phillips, king of recruitment. Remember, for 9 months, see, he popped that illegal alien out right here. He popped that American citizen out right here on over 9 months. There you go, right here on our channel. Joe, do you love black people? Do you love black people? It means ask. Must be a Jew or cult leader thing to say. It's all Greek to me. I'm an American millennial Marine Corps vet and never heard that, but I've used it. All looks like Chinese to me and heard others too. Interesting. It is an American phrase to say Greek to me. I never heard Chinese to me. That might be a North versus South thing, though. The Chinese thing. Even if Biden pardons can be arrested and jail, you should still can't be arrested in jail. We should still investigate. People need to know the secrets need to come out. That's going to be part of the argument we're making. Don't steal my thunder. It's time to use Trump trials for all the challenges to his EO and oh, my other channel. Start putting up edited down summaries, making another income stream. That's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea indeed. Slaves were property, not criminals. They weren't considered humans. I mean, I don't want to get into that whole ugly history, but they were considered property. The objective was to overturn the Dred Scott decision, frankly, which was the worst decision until Roe v. Wade came along. That was wrong. Worst decision. We'll just leave it there. It's the ability of a government to draft conscript under jurisdiction. Can the U.S. government draft conscript illegals? That's part of the argument that we were talking about last night. It's part of the argument we were talking about last night. Former slaves were in part represented by Congress and not illegal. Illegal aliens are invaders. Big difference. They were, and they're not former slaves anymore. Right? By 1860. Oh, former slaves, you're saying they were represented by Congress. They were here legally. It's not even comparable. It's not even comparable. The question is whether there was just a broadening in general. But there would be such a divergence from everything that the Congress was doing in 1866. Months before they enacted the 14th Amendment in 1866, they had their own civil rights movement. Apparently, the 60s is the perfect time to have a civil rights awakening. So I guess you should be alert for that 40 years from now. If you're young, and be alert for the civil rights movement of 2066, because we saw in the 60s, in the 1960s, there was a civil rights awakening, and in the 1860s, there was a civil rights awakening. And the Civil Rights Awakening in the 1860s is what led to the 13th and 14th Amendments, and as well as the Civil War. And it was after the passage of the Civil Rights Act that they passed the 14th Amendment. The Civil Rights Act itself had conferred citizenship onto slaves, but they wanted to make sure that it would be difficult to ever be removed for former slaves. So that's the originalist perspective. The originalist perspective is, what was the point of this? Well, what were they originally thinking when they drafted this law? The textualist is, okay, what words are written here? How can we define these words to give them each word in this statute meaning? I don't care what their thought was. I don't care what their objective was. I care, what do these words mean? How do I define the word jurisdiction? Which, you know, when you're in law school, they tell you jurisdiction means power or authority. But what does it mean subject to the, jurisdiction of the United States? What does that mean? Does that mean some jurisdiction or complete jurisdiction? And there's logic to say that if it's some jurisdiction, if it's only just some jurisdiction, you don't need to even put anything in there. The reason you wouldn't need to put anything in there is because everyone knows what are the people who support this. I didn't really want to get back into this again. The people who support the broad interpretation of the 14th Amendment we've had until now, those folks who support that, they come from a perspective of jus soli, which is you're standing on the soil, therefore the soil is what enriches you and makes you into a citizen of the state. What about the child of an ambassador? Wouldn't jus soli swallow that kid up and make them an American citizen? So the answer to that is that there was a legal fiction that was employed in the 19th century when it came to ambassadors and foreign dignitaries, that when they were walking on United States territory, the very earth they stood on became territory of their home country. That it's like for purposes of supporting their weight. So when you have a Chinese dignitary, you have a French dignitary that's standing on American soil, the soil right beneath their feet is considered French soil. Like it travels with them like a shadow, a 12 o'clock shadow directly beneath them. That is now, so if you would have a UN meeting, in theory, in the 19th century, which the UN didn't exist then, but you had a Polish dignitary, a French dignitary, an Austrian dignitary, a Prussian dignitary, and they were all gathered together. Each of the soil beneath their feet would be considered the soil of their respective home countries. So accordingly, their children are not born on American soil. If that's the case, if that is the case, then there never is a thought that they should become American citizens, because they're not in America. They're on their own home soil. Their own home soil, whether they're standing in the state of New York, it's their home soil, right? That's supporting them. So you wouldn't need to exclude them. So it's got to be excluding someone else, which means it's excluding. So the people, who are they excluding? Who would it? It's got to be excluding someone. If it's excluding someone, who's it excluding? It's got to be people who are not under the complete jurisdiction. People who have, I don't know, some sort of allegiance to a different country. Somebody visiting. Somebody not paying taxes. Somebody who can't be drafted. And people would say, oh, women couldn't be drafted also. That's what they'll throw back at you. You know, a little kid can't be drafted. But the 14th Amendment also cleared up the status of children born during the Confederacy under English common law. They couldn't be citizens. I hadn't thought of that. It's a great point, Ron. Thank you. Another member for 9 months. He's like racing Master Phillips here. The states that don't cooperate should have the extra cost deducted from whatever aid they get. I'm all for the penalty. Using the purse to penalize these evil folks. Okay, so let's look at Burdick versus United States. We're not going to go through the entire case. Let's talk a little bit about this case. What was the story with Burdick versus United States? Burdick versus United States, which devolved from there, we developed the Burdick principle or the Burdick rule. Here's the story. Here's the story with George Burdick. George Burdick is the editor-in-chief 100 years ago, literally more than 100 years ago, 110 years ago, of the Chicago Tribune. He's the editor-in-chief of the Chicago Tribune, and the grand jury decided they thought that there was some sort of leak that was coming from the Treasury Department and was leaking to reporters information that they were not supposed to be leaking. Apparently, the Chicago Tribune was reporting it. George Burdick gets brought in. They subpoena him to come testify. He refuses to testify and tell over who his sources are. He doesn't want to name his sources. He thinks it's a violation of his freedom of press. Also, that he might be incriminating himself. He's like, I don't want to incriminate myself. So, no, I don't want to testify. I don't want to tell you anything. President Woodrow Wilson says, oh, you don't want to testify because you're afraid you're going to incriminate yourself? I pardon you. I pardon you. I only imitated the guy from Schindler's List with that because Woodrow Wilson was pretty much a Nazi. But before there was such a thing as Nazis, he really was a terrible human being in so many different ways. So Woodrow Wilson said to George Burdick, I pardon you. Now go testify. And he's like, I don't accept your pardon. I reject your pardon. He was afraid that if he accepts the pardon, he no longer has Fifth Amendment privilege anymore. So he's not subjected. He can't be punished. He can't be self-incriminating. And that's what his fight was. So there was a big argument where they said, no, you have to accept the pardon. You don't have a choice. You must accept the pardon. So I don't want to accept the pardon. I reject your pardon. So that's the backdrop here for George Burdick and his pardon that he got from President Woodrow Wilson. This became Burdick versus United States, which was a 1915 decision. And the court said a few things of note in that particular case. We're not going to go through the entire case here because I want to try and do this as expeditiously as possible. I will share with you relevant portions thereof. Acceptance as well as delivery of a pardon is essential to its validity. That's the first thing we have. You have to accept it. If rejected by the person to whom it's tendered, the court has no power to force it on him. Now, that's quoting from an earlier case of United States versus Wilson. United States versus Wilson is actually an 1855 case. So we're really talking about ancient law here, okay? So the question is whether the President of the United States may exercise the pardoning power before conviction. Not blanket, whatever, the way Joe Biden did. The first question they have here is, can such a thing can someone be pardoned before there's a conviction? He's been charged, not yet convicted. Can you issue a pardon? A witness may refuse to testify on the ground that his testimony may have an incriminating effect, notwithstanding the president's offers, and he refuses a pardon for any offense connected with the matters in regard to which he's asked to testify. There are substantial differences between legislative immunity and a pardon. So legislative immunity is when someone says, we won't prosecute you for violating a crime. That's very different from a pardon. The Burdick court makes a very big deal about this. By the way, this was a unanimous 8-0 decision, the Burdick case. The Burdick verdict. The Burdick verdict. The latter carries an imputation of guilt. When you accept a pardon, that carries an imputation of guilt and acceptance of a confession of it, that you violated a crime, while the former is non-committal and tantamount to the silence of the witness. There is distinction between amnesty and pardon. The former overlooks the offense and is usually addressed to crimes against the sovereignty of the state and political offenses. So when you're talking about amnesty, we're talking about crimes against the power of the state, and says the offense never happens. The latter, when you're talking about a pardon, that remits punishment and condones infractions of the peace of state. That is basically saying you did a sin, you did something terrible, you were a bad boy, your punishment is nothing. So what are we saying about a pardon here? What is a pardon? A pardon is you're guilty, but you're getting zero punishment. You're completely guilty, terrible human being, but you get no punishment. That's what a pardon is. The facts which involve the effective pardon of the President of the United States tended to one who has not been convicted of a crime nor admitted the commission thereof, and also the necessity of acceptance of a pardon in order to make it effective are stated in the opinion. So I'm not going to go. I gave you the background of the facts here. So we're not going to go through. We're not going to go through that. But the pardon that Woodrow Wilson issued was, whereas it's believed that George Burdick will again refuse to testify in the said proceeding on the ground that his testimony might tend to incriminate himself. Now, therefore, be it known that I, Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States of America, in consideration of the premises, divers of other good and sufficient reasons, me thereon to moving, do hereby grant unto George Burdick a full and unconditional pardon for all offenses against the United States which he, said George Burdick, has committed or may have committed or taken part in connection with the securing, writing about, or assisting the publication of information so incorporated in the aforementioned article. I mean, the article about, inside information of the Treasury. And in connection with any other article, matter, or thing concerning with which he may be interrogated in said grand jury proceeding, thereby absolving him from the consequences of every such criminal act, meaning you cannot punish him for anything that he admits to having done when he's forced to testify. But Burdick declined to accept the pardon or answer questions as to the source of information. He's like, I'm still not giving my sources. I don't want to share that. So, again, he went back and forth with the grand jury in question again. Let's get into the logic of the Burdick court. So they start by relying very heavily on his 1855 case, United States versus Wilson, and they say that in Wilson there were a whole number of indictments against Wilson and his partner Porter, some of which were for obstructing the mail and others for robbing the mail and putting the life of the carrier in jeopardy. They're convicted on one of the latter indictments, sentenced to death, and Porter was executed. President Jackson pardoned Wilson, the pardon reciting that it was for the crime for which he had been sentenced to suffer death. But the other crimes, he said, you're going to stay in jail for. Which they're calling that a conditional pardon, and the court's going to say that's not really a conditional pardon. So in other indictments, Wilson withdrew his plea of not guilty and pleaded guilty. Upon being arraigned for a sentence, the court suggested the propriety of inquiring as to the effect of the pardon. Although alleged to relate to a conviction on another indictment, Wilson was asked if he wished to avail himself of the pardon, to which he answered in person that, I'm saying nothing. They said, do you want to avail yourself of the pardon? He said, I'm not saying anything. He didn't wish in any manner to avail himself in order to avoid sentence in this particular case of the pardon referred to. So he was unwilling to say, I accept the pardon. He had no interest in saying that. And the judges then had a whole brouhaha. Does that mean that the pardon is no good? Or is it good? He doesn't want to say anything. And they come to this conclusion in Wilson that the prisoner can, under his conviction, derive no advantage from the pardon without bringing the same judicially before the court by plea, motion, or otherwise. If he's going to rely on that pardon, the defendant has to come forward and say, here is my pardon. And there was no appearance for him. And the United States, the burden of his argument was that a pardon to be effective must be accepted. That's what Attorney General Taney said. And that you can only start considering the pardon once he says it's his. Once he says he wants it. It's a grant to him, the pardon to the defendant. It's his property, and he may accept it or not as he pleases. So you can decide. It's like you're offering a gift, and I can decide to accept the gift or reject it. It is insisted that unless he pleads it or in some way claims its benefit, thereby denoting his acceptance of the proffered grace, the court cannot notice it nor allow it to prevent them from passing sentence. The whole current of authority establishes this principle. So, first and foremost, what we have here is it's basically like offer of property when a president offers a pardon, and it only becomes something that's effective when it's accepted by the defendant. You can see how in Burdick, where he says, I don't want your pardon, that kind of ends the whole pardon issue, right? Let's jump down here. The court deduced and declared this conclusion. A pardon is an act of grace proceeding from the power entrusted with the execution of laws, which exempts the individual on whom it's bestowed from punishment the law inflicts for a crime he has committed. It is a private, though official act of the executive magistrate delivered to the individual for whose benefit it is intended. An emphasis of the official act and its functional deficiency, if not accepted by him to his intended, it was said, a private deed, not communicated to him. Whatever may be its character, whether pardon or release, is totally unknown and cannot be acted on. Turning then on the other side, that is, the effect of the pardon on him to whom it is offered, and completing its description and expressing the condition of its consummation, they said a pardon is a deed, the validity of which delivery is essential. It has to actually get to him. And delivery is not complete without acceptance. It may then be rejected by the person to whom it is tendered. And if it can be rejected, we have discovered no power in a court to force it on him. So you can't compel him to accept the pardon. All right, jumping ahead here a little bit. They start talking about whether or not the Wilson case was a conditional pardon, and that might make it different. The court says it's not really conditional. It was just a partial pardon, not a conditional pardon. Conditional means you have to do something to get the pardon. This was a partial pardon, meaning of all the crimes you charge, some of them are pardoned, some of them are not. That's not really conditional. May plaintiff in error having the means of immunity at hand, that is, pardon the president, refuse to testify on the ground that his testimony may have an incriminating effect. So he has a means of immunity because of the pardon. Can he say, I plead the fifth? Does it really obviate it? A superficial consideration might dictate a negative answer, but the answer would confound rights which are distinct and independent. This is an important thing which is going to bother. I'm warning you now, this part's going to bother you. It is to be borne in mind that the power of the president under the Constitution to grant pardons to the right of witness must be kept in accommodation, meaning its own separate compartment. So that's his pardon power. He has his power to grant a pardon, and then the defendant has his own power of not self-incriminating. Both have sanctioned in the Constitution and should therefore be in the anxiety law to preserve both, to leave to each its proper place. In this, as in other conflicts between personal rights and the powers of the government, technical, even nice, distinctions are proper to be regarded. So the pardon was legally issued was sufficient for immunity. It was Burdick's right to refuse it and therefore not become effective. His right under the Constitution to decline to testify remained to be asserted, and the reasons for his action were personal. It's true, he said, that the law regards only mere penal consequences and not the personal disgrace or opprobrium attaching the exposure to the crime. So if you accept the pardon, you're going to be publicly scorned, that people are going to be like, oh, you're a criminal. That's why you got a pardon. We see this happening on social media all the time now, right? Someone accepts a pardon. People are like, oh, yeah, you accept the pardon because you're guilty. We saw that happen, J6 defendants. We saw it happen to the folks that Biden pardoned. You accepted it because you're guilty. But certainly, such consequence may influence assertion or relinquishment of a right. It's supposed only a possibility of a charge of crime and interposed protection against. Okay, let's go back past that. So this brings us to the difference between legislative immunity and a pardon. There are substantial differences between the immunity, meaning your right to not self-incriminate, and a pardon. The latter carries an imputation of guilt. A pardon carries an imputation of guilt. It also has acceptance of a confession of it. When you accept a pardon, you're confessing to your guilt. The former, when you say I refuse to testify, has no such imputation or confession. There's no confession at all when you say I plead the fifth. It is tantamount to the silence of the witness as non-committal. It is the unobtrusive act of the law giving protection against the sinister use of his testimony, not like a pardon, requiring him to confess his guilt in order to avoid a conviction of it. So Fifth Amendment right is basically saying that you're silent, as if the question was never asked, and as opposed to pardon saying, I'm guilty, and I'm getting no punishment. They have different character and have different purposes. One overlooks offense. The other remits punishment. The first is usually addressed to crimes against the sovereignty of the state, to political offenses, forgiveness being deemed more expedient for the public welfare than the prosecution and punishment. The second condones infractions. Pardons condones an infraction of the peace of the state. Amnesty is usually general, addressed to classes or even communities, a legislative act under legislation, the act of the supreme magistrate. If other rights are dependent upon it, there's affirmative evidence of acceptance. So what do we get from all this? If there be no other rights, its only purpose is to stay the movement of the law. Its function is exercised when it overlooks the offense and the offender, leaving both in oblivion. You can see how when they wrote a Supreme Court case 100 years ago, you need to sort of sit there digesting their words a lot more carefully. What do we take from all this, and why do I think that this is relevant with respect to the pardons that were issued by Joe Biden to the J6 committee, to Fauci, to Anthony Fauci, et cetera, et cetera? What I took from this particular case, and what's to me pretty clear from Burdick, is I don't think that a pardon stops you from charging him with a crime. You can charge him with a crime. You can go through the entire trial process of a crime. All it stops you from is punishing him for the crime. But you could actually conduct, based on what's written in Burdick, in theory, you can charge him with a crime, go through the entire process of a trial, and at that stage, assuming these pardons are effective, in that case, he wouldn't face punishment for the crime. He would be found formally guilty. And, ideally, he may be found not guilty. I don't know. They can be found guilty of the crime so that the public understands that they are actually what happened here. There's a cost to the state. And there's a cost to the defendants in defending from the crime. And they may not bother defending, saying, I'm just going to waive my pardon at the end, and I'm not going to bother defending it. But in theory, assuming that these pardons are ironclad, which I don't think that they are, but assuming that they were ironclad, there's nothing here that stops you from going forward with a trial to assess whether or not they're guilty of crimes. This applies to Hunter Biden with respect to anything with influence peddling. This addresses the J6 committee. This addresses Anthony Fauci. Now, to some degree, some of his crimes may be things that predate the pardon period. And there's a lot of problems with these pardons in general. Now, I disagree with something that was stated during that video that we watched. If you joined late, we were watching a video where Dr. Martin was going through all the problems with the pardon. And I disagree with something that he wrote there. When we're looking at what how the pardon power works, we're trying to figure out what is pardonable, what is not pardonable. I'm just going to try to pull it up here. The language here in the Constitution with respect to a pardon says the president should be commander-in-chief of the Army, Navy, blah, blah, blah. It's the last part of this. Upon any subject related, and he shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. What does this mean, except in cases of impeachment? So he doesn't have a power to pardon in cases of impeachment. I'm still not sure what this means. It definitely means that he cannot, if someone is being impeached, he can't pardon them from that impeachment process, right? And that was part of what he was saying there was Anthony Fauci is still part of the NIH. He can be impeached today. He should be impeached, and that's definitely not pardoned because the president has no power to stop him from being impeached. So you certainly should impeach Fauci. There's no reason not to, and there's no legal argument to suggest that a pardon that Biden had any ability, power, authority, jurisdiction to protect him from impeachment. His Constitution is expressed. The very sentence that empowered Biden to issue pardons carves out his ability to issue pardons with respect to cases of impeachment. I don't know what this means with respect to, well, what about the underlying charge if he's impeached for crimes against humanity based on various actions he's taken over the last 12 years? Does that mean he's unpardonable from the impeachment process? Clearly, from the impeachment process, he cannot be pardoned. Does this also mean that the underlying crimes prosecution from it, he cannot be impeached for those crimes? Because it's part of because it's something, does this apply to anything that's an impeachable offense? It's hard for me to read it as anything that's an impeachable offense. I don't think that meaning I'm trying to figure out what is the extent of the limitation on Joe Biden's pardon power, or now Trump's pardon power. Where is that limitation? Do we look at this and say, definitely we know there's one limitation, that if he's being impeached, the pardon is not helping him? What about if it's a crime that's an impeachable offense? Do these last 5 words here say you can't pardon from something that's an impeachable offense? My gut reaction to that, if you ask me, just reading these words and seeing history, is no. I think the president, he's not carved out from that. The president can issue a pardon for an impeachable offense. He can pardon someone for murder. He can pardon someone for an impeachable offense. That's an impeachable offense. So I do think that the underlying crime he has the grant, his ability to issue a pardon. But when he issues that pardon, what does that pardon do? What the pardon does is he's admitting guilt, and it's hard to understand how he's admitting guilt for everything he's done for the NIH in the last 10 years. What does that even mean? We don't even know what he's charged with. We have no idea what he's charged with. The language in Burdick saying that there's an admission in guilt is implying that these broad pardons that have no definable terms are not valid pardons because he has to be admitting guilt to something. And if there's no crime that's been charged, we don't know what he's admitting guilt to. So how is it that a pardon is being issued when the pardoning president does not know what he's pardoning? And there's no admission to anything because no crime has even been stated. We don't know if these crimes are genocide. What happens if he committed murder in order to raise funding for the NIH? Oh, that guy's got a $10 million thing and we need $10 million. So he's got a $10 million painting. So I'm going to kill him and steal the painting and sell it on the black markets for purposes of funding our NIH research because his pardon relates to work he's doing for NIH. So if he did such a thing, someone who reads the pardon would be like, well, I guess that's covered. It's part of his work for the NIH. So he tortures beagles because he gets his jollies doing that, and he literally did torture beagles. I did a whole look at Anthony Fauci. This guy literally tortured dogs. I don't know if you know this, and what I'm about to say, if you have sensitive visual about visualizations being painted for you, you might want to close your ears for the next 45 seconds while I explain to you what this monster did to poor defenseless animals. I'll hold my hand up and I'll take my hand out when I'm finished explaining it, okay? So, this is what Joe Biden did to beagles. He strapped them down, chained them down, their forepaws and all four paws strapped down to a bed and had their eyes propped open, their eyelids propped open, and had sandflies eat their eyes. Okay? The screaming was so disturbing to the people in the facility that they cut the vocal cords out of the beagles because they said it's way too disturbing hearing these dogs yelp in pain and aggravation from having their eyes eaten by sandflies. That's Dr. Anthony Fauci, the utter friggin' monster, who the left calls Saint Fauci. So when you talk about monstrosity, a person who's even has a capacity for that type of monstrosity, astonishing monster. Look, we're here to help people. Look, gosh, I hate that friggin' monster. So yeah, I definitely want to see this guy charged of anything chargeable, anything. And if stuff predates it, fine. If it's stuff that you're just and that's you want to impeach him, awesome. Go impeach the heck out of that dude. Impeach the hell out of him. But I want to see him go after him. And even if he can't get punished, I want everyone on the planet to know what a monster this human being is. Because he's a terrible, terrible, terrible human being who's the highest paid employee of the federal government for God knows how long. And he's a terrible monster who, my personal opinion, is responsible for the deaths of arguably millions of people. While enriching themselves in ways beyond measure. So, yeah, I think they should go like hell after him. And by the way, go after Adam Kinzinger too. Go after Liz Cheney for suborning perjury. Those private conversations where she's interceding and breaching, she should lose her law license. She should be disbarred. for what she did. Talking to a witness behind closed doors and says, hey, let's get rid of the lawyer you have now because he's too annoying, and we'll get you a lawyer who's friends of ours who's going to guide you in ways that are good for you. That's how she got Clavicle Girl to get up there and stand and say, oh my gosh, you should have seen how he grabbed the beat, how he jumped the wheel, Trump jumped the wheel and tried driving through the Capitol. And the whole perjured story that she shared there. She can be disbarred for that, for her contact there, and she should be. She should live life in shame and humiliation for what she did. You can't be pardoned from that. Can't be pardoned from that. So, I do think we need to have investigations, and I think the fact that he pardoned these people, that doesn't stop you from going after everyone who's around them and them directly. Go after Anthony Fauci, whatever punishment we can live. I do think that ultimately, when these pardons are looked at, that there's so many flaws with these broad pardons, so many legal fallacies that are employed in order to recognize these pardons as being effective. When there's no crime stated, when you have these gross periods of time, when there's no crime stated, you have a problem that you have multiple problems because there's no crime referenced. The problems, and it's implied in Burdick, because Burdick says there's an acceptance of guilt. How can there be an acceptance of guilt? And it's the magistrate, which is saying, we are now going to say, we're not going to hold you accountable. We're not going to punish you, even though you're guilty. You have to be guilty of something, not just of working for the NIH, not just of serving on the J6 committee. There has to be something you're guilty of. And if there's no recognition from the pardoning entity as to what the crime is, then how can there be an acceptance of guilt? Which means you don't have a valid pardon. We don't know if there's fraud here because we don't even know what crimes are there. And everyone recognizes that if someone obtains a pardon through fraud, that the pardon would be invalid. So there's multiple problems with these ridiculously broad pardons that Trump was giving out, like Hyundais to an Oprah audience. There's multiple legal problems with them. And I think that even if one way or another these pardons hold up, even if these pardons, at the end of the day, historians look back on these pardons and they say, wow, turned out those pardons were considered legally valid by the Supreme Court, or whatever court is the ultimate adjudicator as to the validity of these pardons. Even if they make it all the way through and are recognized by the court as being a valid pardon, we, the public, are entitled to know the truth. It does not protect them from a criminal trial. It simply protects them from the punishment that would be meted out at the end of a criminal trial. And as long as I just want to hear a jury foreperson come out there and say guilty or not guilty. I want them investigated. I want these crimes looked at, and whatever crimes they find upon a thorough investigation existed, I want them charged with it. And I think we Americans deserve to know, is Anthony Fauci guilty of crimes for what he did in that role in the NIH? Is the J6 committee, select committee, are they guilty of suborning perjury, of lying to the public? Even if there's no punishment for the Adam Kinzingers of the world, there's no reason for you to break down crying again, Adam, because even if there's no punishment at all for the Nancy Pelosi's and the Adam Schiffs and the Benny Thompsons and the Liz Cheneys, we, the public, are entitled to know the truth. The same way that Trump recognized that we're entitled to know the truth about what happened with JFK and RFK and MLK, every K, we're supposed to know what happened there. And hopefully he delivers on that. He seems like he's genuinely going to release it and setting up a plan to how it's going to be made accessible to the public. So too, we, the public, are entitled to know what the heck happened in 2020. And then what with the illness of 2020. We, the public, are entitled to know what the heck type of corruption was Joe Biden and Hunter Biden engaged in. And James Biden. Charge those knuckleheads too. We're entitled to know what level of involvement Dr. Anthony Fauci had in the creation of the disaster of 2020, and we're entitled to know exactly what sort of shenanigans the J6 Select Committee was engaging in when they were trying to paint the entire country and tilting them into thinking that MAGA is some sort of crazy entity enemy, and that Donald Trump, their leader, is the worst leader since Adolf. We're entitled to know the truth here. And all those pardons do, maybe, and I've laid forth many arguments why it would be they being ineffective. Maybe they stop them from being punished. Maybe. That doesn't stop them from hearing guilty. And we, the public, are entitled to hear guilty, 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 guilty. That's my perspective on that. It was evil. It was downright evil. Woodrow Wilson. He's the one who birthed American interventionism. And the United Nations, through the League of Nations, he was awful human being. Awful. Extradite Fauci somewhere that wants to charge him. That worked too. Biden could pardon Trump with his acts in the Southern District of New York, this cementing his guilt. How can the act of a person, a pardon, confer confession on another? That's why Burdick says you can reject a pardon. He said you can reject it. That's precisely what Burdick says. That's what the Supreme Court said in 1866. It's 1866. That case, no, the Burdick court was in 1915. And they were quoting the Wilson court, which was from 1855. So when we're talking about the court cases relating to pardoning, so we're looking at Burdick in 1915 and the Wilson case in 1855. When we're talking about 1866, that's in the context of discussing the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship and the Civil Rights Act of the 14th Amendment. That's when you're talking about the 1860s, right after the Civil War. So charge them all, make them accept the pardon. Yep. What about pretrial detention? Does pardon prevent pretrial detention? I don't know. Good question, Pat. You've been here for 6 months. This is why your questions are getting better at that. They're getting better. I think it probably would. I think there can be no punishment upon them. So I would, if I was a judge on a case like that and they had waived the pardon there, and let's face it, there's not going to be a pretrial detention of any of the persons I named, whether it's James Biden, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Anthony Fauci. There's not going to be any pretrial detention of any of them. And frankly, realistically, there shouldn't be. Right? They're not a flight risk. So, and they're not likely to be causing further harm of a similar kind of nature while awaiting trial. So, being reasonable, I would not say, oh, let's throw them in prison awaiting trial. That just sounds unnecessarily draconian. What did Ford preemptively pardon Nixon for then? So I've talked about this. Oh, so this is pardoning him for Watergate. And the other thing I talked about is no one says that the Ford pardon was valid. See, the way it works with a pardon is the pardon intimidates prosecutors into not prosecuting. So the charges are never brought, like as if you're a BLM rioter. You know, you can feel confident you commit lots of crimes, you're not going to be charged. So too, that's what a pardon does. A pardon, this is why no one ever tests, this is why we don't know the law on it, because no one ever tests the pardon. So, yeah, he preemptively pardoned Nixon. I would make the argument that that preemptive pardon, seeing as how there was no crime, I don't know if there was a crime stated in the pardon. I assume it's for things related to Watergate. But, you know, if he said for his involvement with, you know, any of the events related to the hotel in Watergate, that would at least describe what the crime is. But I think he said, yeah, I think he gave him a broad pardon for like 10 years. And I would argue that it's invalid, that they could have prosecuted him. They just chose not to. The point is that it's like glass, like the analogy I gave the other night is it's like glass that people look at it and they're told it's bulletproof glass. It's bulletproof glass. There's no point to it. At a certain point, you don't need to have bulletproof glass. It's just everyone just assumes it. There's a famous experiment. There's a famous experiment which to me is a fascinating thing. I want to share this with you as far as learned behavior. And prosecutors have a learned behavior not to prosecute someone who has a pardon because they feel like it's a waste of their time or whatever, or that the pardon's going to be effective. And they feel like they're impenetrable. There was a study that was commissioned, I think back in the 60s or 70s, where they took 5 monkeys in a prison and they put them in a cage. And in the cage, there's a ladder. At the top of the ladder, there's a banana. I don't think I've talked about this on this channel before. I may have. If I did, it's worth repeating. Top of the ladder is a banana. 5 monkeys go into the cage. One of the monkeys sees the banana on top of the ladder, starts climbing the ladder, and as soon as he starts climbing the ladder, ice cold water is rained down from these shower heads, drenching the other monkeys, and they start freaking out. And the monkey goes down without taking the banana. And a few minutes later, half hour later, another monkey climbs up onto the ladder. As soon as he climbs up onto the ladder, starts walking up the ladder, ice cold water comes raining down on the other monkeys. They're freaking out. When this happens 3 or 4 times, as soon as any monkey starts climbing the ladder, all the other monkeys get ice cold water rained down upon them. It gets to a point that when the next monkey goes up and starts climbing the ladder, all the other monkeys run over at that monkey and start beating the tar out of him. There's no ice cold water. And then the next time a monkey tries going up, the monkeys beat the tar. Any monkey that tries going up there, all the monkeys now are beating the tar out of any monkey that dares to go up there. They take one of the monkeys out and they put in a brand new monkey. So after a while, no monkeys are climbing because they're like, I don't want to get beaten up. Then they take out one monkey and replace it with a brand new monkey. This monkey comes in there, looks around, sees the banana on the top of the ladder, starts walking up, starts to climb the ladder. And as soon as he steps onto the ladder, the other monkeys jump him and start beating him and beating him and beating him and beating him. And the monkey learns you don't climb the ladder. And then they start replacing another monkey and another monkey and another monkey until eventually all of the monkeys that were in the original experiment are gone. And each new monkey that comes in there, they come in there, and the first few minutes that they're there in the cage, they start climbing the ladder. As soon as they start climbing the ladder, all the other monkeys jump the monkey and beat the tar out of him. And this happens with each new substitute monkey. The new monkey doesn't realize there's anything wrong with going to the ladder, but they learn real fast. You step on that ladder, you're going to regret it. They might get beaten up a couple of times, but they learn pretty fast. And as soon as they all learn it, they start getting changed out into a new monkey there. And that new monkey learns it until they replaced all the monkeys. And none of the monkeys there have ever had water, ice cold water rain down upon them. But each of them have learned that as soon as someone steps on a ladder, what do we do when someone steps on a ladder? We just beat the heck out of him. None of them know why. None of them understand anything about why. All they know is this is what we do in this cage. Someone steps on that ladder to go get that banana. We are going to beat the tar out of him. So they all learn. They all learn. They don't even know what it is. They don't know. They just know this is what we don't do. We don't do this. That's not something you do. You don't go on the ladder. I know it looks tempting. You don't go on the ladder. You don't go on the ladder. It's a learned behavior which reflects how society operates also. You don't even know why. No one knows why. The people who had original reasons for doing it, they're long gone. You don't know why, but you're just like, this is something we're not messing with. This is what we see with birthright citizenship, as far as, any woman who visits here for 30 seconds pops out a kid here on our soil, even if she's screaming death to America, and that her kid is an American citizen. Bin Laden's wife was extradited there, and comes here and she's in a cell, and she's screaming every day, every moment of her life, death to America. And she pops out a kid on soil. That kid is an American citizen. I mean, it sounds insanity. Sounds insanity. But that's what's learned behavior. That's what everyone learned. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. So too with these pardons. With these pardons, it's like, oh, well, look, he granted a pardon. He granted a pardon. So you need to find out, like, A, are these pardons valid at all? And B, even if they are valid, I don't care. I want to hear guilty. The pardon simply is a remission from punishment. But it's not a remission from us learning what you are guilty of. And there's all sorts of questions you can ask as to whether there is such a thing as a pardon when there's no admission of guilt, because no one even knows what crimes you're being charged with. How's there an admission of guilt? And if an admission of guilt is part of the whole pardon process, the acceptance of the pardon is admission of guilt. Guilt of what? We need to know what it is, and we have a right to know what it is. We have a right to know what it is. So that's why I would respectfully say to you, Terry, I don't think that pardon of Ford to Nixon was valid. But the monkeys all learned you don't challenge the pardon. So no one challenged them. No one challenges it. It's better than being pardoned, because you're just not facing repercussion, and no one knows the truth of anything. It's the bulletproof glass that's not really bulletproof, but everyone thinks it is. So the reason Biden would issue it is so that Pam Bondi would not prosecute. And in that sense, it's effective as protecting them. The same way, that's what the pardon does. So the pardon is not really operating that it's like, oh, we're learning what your guilt is, and now you're not facing punishment for it. The pardon is now no one's going to bother charging you, because all the DAs have become monkeys who have learned not to charge when there's a pardon. South Park got it with COVID, but Fauci pangolin. I didn't see that episode, so I don't know. The monster tortured the most human-trusting dogs. And God punished him in very severe ways. Amen, Dodger. Amen. A pardon is a release of punishment for a crime. The punishment for impeachment is removed from office, which the president can't prevent, right? I think that's logical. I think that's a logical read, Richard. The J6er has proof that J6 was set up by Pelosi and Milley and the FBI. He's testifying in front of Congress. That'd be awesome. Milley's another one to go after. I want to know what your crimes are. Counterpoint, as much as I also want to know the truth, there's also the concept that the process is the punishment. Yeah, that's right. Oh, what's your point? The process is the punishment. Part of the reason the process is the punishment is people trying to defend themselves because they're afraid of the punishment. If they don't bother putting up much of a defense, don't bother doing anything, then the process is not. If the part of the reason the process of punishment is because they're trying to fight against having the ultimate punishment. Or because they're being incarcerated beforehand. So it's not really as much of a punishment when you're dealing with a person who is under the belief that they can't be punished. Putting someone who's been pardoned through a trial seems like it could be abused as a way to punish them. How? How? The process is like I said, the process is the punishment because, in large part, you're desperately trying to defend yourself, investing countless sums and wasting countless energies trying to protect yourself. But if you're not bothering to protect yourself because you don't care what the court ends up saying, then it's not much of a punishment. Apes are much better than monkeys. This is true. This is definitely true. It's great. It was a great. There's so many things you can take from that experiment. We need more experiments like that. Creative experiments. Fun theory with Millie. Can he be court-martialed? Interesting. I would think so. There could be imprisonment, perhaps, but I would think so. So it's a really interesting question, Tyler. That's a really interesting question. So, did I convince you all that they should be prosecuted? That's my question. Did I convince you? Did it work? Did it work, or should I just move on? Fauci is Mangala 2.0. Suck at YouTube. He is. He is. Monster. All right. Let me just see what else I have left that I didn't give you this week. Let me see. It's Thursday nights. The end of Thursday, what we do is we unleash. I unload that which I've gathered up for the week to share with you that I, for one reason or another, never had a chance to. I think I have a few funny videos I wanted to share with you. I think I have that. Yeah, there's one thing I remember seeing, and I don't see it here. Oh, before I get to the funny,
because
I do have one more serious video here for you. On point here about the whole Fauci investigation.
Buckle up, because we're going to get to the bottom of what the nonsense select committee for January 6th. There's a reason that everybody on that committee was pardoned. It's because they were not telling the truth. They were lying to the American people. Look, we all know that what happened on January 6th 4 years ago was bad. It was awful. A number of people assaulted law enforcement. That's unacceptable. But the narrative that the Democrats have had for the last 4 years is not true. It's false. They embellish, they lie, and we're going to show them exactly what happened. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to find out why President Biden pardoned all of the members of the January 6th committee. And guess what? Because they're pardoned, they don't have an excuse not to come in and testify before us. So we're going to get to the bottom of this, particularly the members that are no longer in office. Expect a subpoena soon. Buckle up.
Expect a subpoena soon. Hope so, Mr. Timmons. William Timmons, Republican from South Carolina. What is this? Can't share that one. That one we had struck for. All right, this I thought was pretty well done. I don't know who did this. Whoever did this pretty well. Pretty good job. Pretty good job. You're gonna like this one. Yikes. How do you get up there?
So what now?
We're going to get in the helicopter.
What's that? Helicopter?
It's the thing that goes like this.
How am I going to get in a helicopter?
It's so good how they work with his hand motion.
Helicopter.
Don't worry, Joe. You're going to get in. It's going to take off, fly in our beautiful American sky, and land right by your house.
Sounds good. Where's my house?
You have a beautiful house. Where's your house, Jill? Don't worry, Joe. She's going to take a good care of your house because she's a housewife now.
My housewife.
How's the first lady of my heart?
I'm cold, but fine, thanks.
How's the first lady of my heart? I'm cold, but fine. Thanks. How's the first lady of my heart? I'm cool.
See, they're starting the helicopter.
Who's getting in that helicopter?
Sir, we're ready for you.
Why do I have to go away?
Joe, don't worry. We'll visit. You can call us anytime.
So, what?
That's pretty good. That was pretty good. Thought you guys would appreciate that one. This is Trump's response in Panama. Hopefully it's short. I can get away with this. I'm going to try to get away with this. I might have to carve this one out. Trump's response in to Panama.
You have a problem with that? You know what you should do? You should sanction me. Sanction me with your army. Oh, wait a minute. You don't have an army. I guess that means you need to shut the fuck up. That's what I do if I don't have no army. I would fuck up. Shut the fuck up. That's right.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. Comedy Central is particularly brutal, so I'm going to move on to the next one real fast here. This is Donald Trump versus DEI. Another short one.
Madness. This is Sparta! Madness.
Madness.
This is Sparta!
I could watch that on a loop all day. This is Sparta!
Madness. This is Sparta!
Don't be a slob. Don't be a slob. Don't be a slob. Woo! Woo! All right. I think that was it. I didn't have as much research this week because I had a couple days off. Again, in case you joined late, I'll plan on being here Saturday nights, and then I'm not going to be here for like a week. I will be going to be making appearances on Locals, giving you updates about my trip and stuff of that nature. That's at goodlogic.locals.com, goodlogic.locals.com. While you're here, if you could please like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Who knows? Maybe I'll do some video editing, upload some videos. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen. No promises. But I do commit doing at least one Locals next week. So there you go. Assuming I can get a connection. I assume I'll be able to. I assume that should be good. We'll see. We will see. All right. I thank you all for joining me. And there's one last message I need to share with you here. You know, I always tell you don't eat lab meat because that's definitely for they, them. There's something else I need to share with you besides obviously don't eat lab meat. I need to share this with you before I go.
But this is insect protein energy bars. And there was a man giving these out by the hundred today. They really want you to eat the bugs. This is not a conspiracy theory, Alex. I couldn't believe it. I took it.
Gates is trying to ban cows and genetically modify those that they do have. He wants to put out a maggot milk where fly larvae are turned into milk. And then, as you said, they're hiding this stuff, and it's pure criminal activity.
And they didn't understand there were insects in it. And I asked the guy who was about to eat it, I said, did you hear him? There's insects in this. And he almost gagged.
Don't eat the bugs. Do not. I don't care if it looks like a protein bar or it looks like maggot milk or whatever. Don't eat the bugs. Nine! Do not eat the bugs! Have a good night, you all. And as always, Godspeed.